Over the last 3 years, we've had almost nearly 10,000 people die. And you can see that in just this year, the first half, we've had almost as many as the previous years. So it's quite a thing. I mean, basically, you have people who are overloading boats. There's just way too many people on the boats. You have people riding in boats that aren't even real. They're, imitation rubber rafts. And then the other issue is that most of these people haven't even seen water before. So these boats are being driven sometimes by a 13 or 14-year-old kid. And, to him, water before was like something he saw in the bathroom or what he was drinking. So they've migrated. They walked across from Syria, across Turkey, and then they've come to the ocean, and they're trying to get to Greece. And it's just, they're completely ill-equipped. It's the wrong thing to be happening, but it does happen. So I personally, when I think about it, my mom, as a small child, lived in the Philippines when it was occupied. And she used to tell us when we were kids, the refugees are the lucky ones. They're the ones who got away, and we still have to help them. And so I always kind of think about that. And I kind of correlate that to this refugee crisis. And, these people are escaping a terrible thing. Bad situation. So the goal of our program is basically we wanted to design a remote life-saving device that is basically anybody can operate it. It's really simple to do. And it goes long periods of time without maintenance. And basically, you just take this thing, you just throw it right in, have a little box, you drive it, you hit the gas, and it goes and does its stuff. And that's how simple we wanted to make it. So to do this, you have lots of design issues. You need to make the thing durable. It's got to be safe. We want to be able to throw it off cliffs, bridges, helicopters. If a big 20-foot wave comes over it, and it's got a lot of hydraulic pressure, we want it to stay together. We're in the salt water most of the time, so it's very corrosive. Electronics don't really like corrosive environments. And to make this thing go and do stuff, you're going to have a lot of power. You're going to have about 1 to 2 kilowatts, so we're going to have about 250 amps. So you don't want to electrocute anybody, and you don't want the thing to have problems. It's just always got to be ready. So when the rescuer grabs this to do it, it's got to turn on, it's got to go, it's got to work. Took a long time to get here. The idea, the invention, and the first prototype was in 2010. The next 4.5, 5 years was how do we refine this, working with experts? How do we set up our production? How do we get everything to go right? How do we make it reliable and dependable? And the last 1.5 years has really been about how do we develop the logistics for this? How do we develop the supply of this? How do we market it? How do we, where is it best used? A lot of the marketing challenges and the logistics issues. So our device, Emily, which stands for Emergency Integrated Life-Saving Lanyard, it's about this big, a little bit over 4 feet. It's basically an electric-powered baby jet ski. You control it by hand. You have a little controller. It has a high-power amplifier. So you just have left and right, and you have gas. You can make it go fast. It's got a video feed on it, so it works in day or night. So if you're too far away to see the victims that you're helping, it pops up on your cell phone or your iPad. You can text that to your boss, or you can tell other people that are responding to the emergency, here's what's going on. And we use it with a rescue reel. So this reel, it can be 600 feet long up to like half a mile. And this thing will pull 100 yards in about 6 or 7 seconds. So you can get like a kilometer, pretty quickly, basically a minute, and you're out there a kilometer in the ocean helping somebody. And it's turned out to be very, very unique. So lo and behold, the really big test came up. And this was something. So in November, October we had our big opportunity. The Hellenic Coast Guard in Greece was looking for technologies to help with the refugee crisis. And so when we got the call of, hey, could you guys bring your robot out? Could you see about using this? This was a big deal to us. Finally, after working out quite a bit of politics and being the only robot that they were going to allow to try, we get out there in January. And basically, we have funding for a 10-day deployment to go and try to see whether this technology would be helpful or not. Through Texas A&M, they have a center called the Center for Robotic Assisted Search and Rescue, and the Roboticists Without Borders. We were able to have a process so we could bring the lifeguard chief from LA, a gentleman we call Mr. Baywatch, second to the left here, to the right. And we also brought a retired Coast Guard ocean rescue guy who was also a Emily operator for flash floods in Arizona. And then Dr. Robin Murphy, slightly to the left, who runs the center. So the first 8-9 days, our job was, we had to go and meet all these people doing these rescues. So there's dozens of NGOs. It's basically Coachella of lifeguards. And we got to meet these people. We have to convince them that we're credible. We have to convince them that we can help them and that we're not going to get in their way. We're not going to cause more problems. And this is basically, they operate 24/7. They have a lot of young volunteers. It's very high energy. And on for the night of the 8th day and the beginning of the 9th day, we finally got the invite for the chief from LA County, Mr. Baywatch, to actually get embedded with the Hellenic Coast Guard and the Spanish rescue team called Proactiva, which is the leading rescue group. Embedded meaning that they agreed that he had extremely good rescue skills. He was a professional that wasn't going to get in their way, that was going to help, and he was an Emily expert, and so he and Emily got to go. The rest of the team was working with the Hellenic Coast Guard for getting their system up and running. But in just the first 4 hours, it turned out to be a big success. It's basically, they were able, on bringing several boats, they were able to assist 4 dangerous situations of about 50 to 60 people per boat, make it from the channel through the danger zone into the area where they can't have lifeboats and where the rocks are, to guide them exactly to where the doctors and the people that receive when they come up on shore. And they were able to do standoff protection for if something happened, they could get there. This is the zone where when the boats capsize, this happens most often there, or other terrible things happen. And it simplified several of the job functions of many of the ocean rescue guys. So they were pretty happy with us. Getting the invite for our second guy to also become embedded for the next day, which was our last day of the deployment. So this is because you're not allowed to stay longer. This is because there wasn't any more money. People have to go back and do their other things. And so on that last day, we also had the NPR guys were embedded with us. And but Captain John Sims had equal success. If you go to our Facebook page or our web page, there's a lot of videos about how they use it and those types of things. But the big thing was now, since that time, they basically use the robots whenever possible to escort all the boats that are coming across. So traffic has reduced because of some beneficial agreements between EU and NATO and Turkey and Greece. But a lot of issues that would happen is when refugees would see the rescue boats coming, they would actually puncture their raft, thinking that, no, now they'll be saved. But the rescue boats can only hold 5 or 6 people, and there's 50 or 60 people on these rafts, and the water is in the 30s. And so sometimes, when they do this, people freeze and people die. They end up, they can't swim anymore, and they sink down to the bottom. And as a matter of fact, on the very last day, the first boat that we were supposed to assist, just beyond the range of where we would have operated if they felt more comfortable, that had happened, and 7 people had perished just in literally 30 minutes. So this happens there all the time. Now it happens a lot less. To us, the concluding thing is they've decided they're trying to acquire 135 systems, so to spread out through the Coast Guard and spread out through the NGOs. The Coast Guard has had equal success operating this system off of their boats, their patrol boat 618, when they're in very rough water and it's very stormy. They'll actually stick a line, they'll drive it out to the boat and to the raft in trouble, and they'll pull back 5 or 10 people, sort of like fishing. And then they'll bolt back out there again in like 6 or 7 seconds. They grab on and they pull them on. So they use this when the water is too rough to put their rescue boat in. So above certain sea states, it's not safe. And these large rescue vessels can't get close because they have propellers and the ship could hurt the people, or they themselves could get in trouble with the rocks. So it's, the other thing is we had a second deployment, and we have 2 systems in Turkey, and the commandant for the Turkish Coast Guard is now working with his parliament and his prime minister to actually get 100 systems on their Coast Guard cutters for their part of the channel when they're helping people that are in trouble in the ocean. So it's turning out to be a pretty good thing, and we do feel like we're making a pretty big difference. So what else? What are we going to do from here? Where's the other path for this project? Well, it turns out this is also a really interesting way for tsunami response. So we've now placed 100 systems in Indonesia. So the idea is a tsunami comes in, everybody's running up on the buildings. You can throw this off with a rope, and you can drive out to the people that are being swept down the roads, and they can grab on and you pull them back, and you just keep on doing this. And so their eventual goal is that all their islands would have this type of system. And this would also work for other islands such as the Maldives and Cambodia and Thailand and a number of places. We've also had some really good success with the swiftwater rescue. So we have some systems now in the Austin, Dallas, Houston area in Texas. So they've been looking at using this for the flood responses. There's a number of different places where they want to use that. And the last couple of months of trials by Austin Fire have worked out really well, and they're looking to outfit all of their rescue teams with this system. And then another big area for us is Los Angeles County. So the fire chief and the lifeguard chief, their eventual goal is everywhere that you see those lifeguard stands and those pickup trucks and their boats, that they would have these systems. So it's interesting that when you ask them, in the case of Los Angeles County, they've been operating several systems for quite a few years. It's really turned on when it comes to the holidays. So when they have 1.5 million people come to all their beaches in LA, they don't discuss how many people they saved with the system. So it doesn't save as many people as their 1,000 lifeguards do. But they instead discuss the hundreds to, if not thousands, of people that they use Emily for to avoid them from needing to be saved. So they actually use it in a proactive way to get people to move over before a rip current forms or to move out of dangerous areas. And so their goal is to create a situation that people don't have to be saved. And it's a new twist that we hadn't thought about. And so who knows what the future might bring. In closing, I'd be amiss. I want to mention my co-inventor, Bob. He couldn't make it with us. He's sick today. So thank you very much.